Welcome to Bunch Formation, the newest college football podcast. I'm Chris Vannini. By the time you listen to this, I will probably be on a plane to Italy. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Chris, did you get deported?
No, that's David Ubben, by the way. By the way, we're both coming to you in beautiful 1080p.
Yeah.
If you're watching on the YouTube channel, we've upgraded that. I will be out for the next 2 weeks. I'll be on a little vacation. My first big vacation for a long time. I'm going to Rome, Naples, and Paris with my wife. We will not be scouting out Germany for that Western Michigan football game that's going to take place in Germany next year. Not sure how I feel about that game, but
I'm struggling
Dave
to care, but yeah.
yeah, Dave might hold the fort down, but we'll be back when I get back from vacation. We are going into full on football seasons here mode at that point. I'm on autopilot in our college football 26 dynasty we have with some other media members. So I'm hoping things don't go too poorly for my beloved San Diego State Aztecs. But
I got some
Dave,
concerns about Kyron Drone's health in that league, by the way. No, I'm excited about it. Listen, we got a lot of moving parts on the show. I'm excited about the show. I'm excited for the season to get here because I think the season is going to, obviously everything ramps up. But I think for both of us, it will simplify things a little bit. I'm excited about it. I'm excited to get into the flow of the season, have games to talk about. I think we're at the point of the year where like there's always a little bit of stuff with camp that kind of, there's stuff to talk about. But once the games get going, I mean, we're having to pare down like, hey, we can't go for 3 hours. Although technically, I guess we could now. So, hey, we'll see.
No limits on this StreamYard. We got a big show planned. We're going to talk about the purpose of preseason media polls. That's a big discussion point right now. Update on Deion Sanders' health. Thankfully, he's okay. The gossip from ACC Media Days, American Media Days. David was at both of those.
Don't say AAC. The AAC is dead. The American lives.
It is dead. The American. The Conference USA Media Days. I was at that. And the Big Ten was talking some trash. We're going to get into all of that. First, a reminder for people as we get closer to the season. Until Saturday is not coming back. A lot of people have been reaching out to me wondering what happened to the show. The Athletic decided not to continue that show. So David and I have been doing this show on our own independently. We're having a ball doing it. We've loved all the feedback from everybody who's been reaching out about it. But if anybody asks about Until Saturday, please let them know about Bunch Formation. When I come back from Europe, we're going to do kind of a soft relaunch type of thing. We'll promote this a lot more. Just the last few weeks of starting the show, just kind of get the foundation set. I think we've got a pretty good foundation.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Friends don't let friends wonder when Until Saturday is coming back. So, hey, tell them, hey, Bunch Formation's where it's at. I'm excited about it. I really, dude, the season's going to be so fun. I can't wait.
Yes, we're almost done talking about the nonsense of the offseason. Almost. If you haven't checked out the show notes, we're going to have timestamps for everything we talk about. If you want to jump ahead to another part of the show, send all your feedback to bunchformationpod@gmail.com. And we're Bunch Formation on pretty much all the social medias that you follow. Please give us a 5-star rating and review. We read every 5-star review on the show. We do not have a new one this week. So if you want your opportunity for a shout out, the opportunity is there. So with that, I got to pull up the drops here. We're going to start off with actually the Say What segment. And that is, where are we at here?
Our friend Ryan Day.
Ryan Day's got something to say.
I'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now.
And we're going to start with preseason polls. Because our good friend, Adam Rittenberg from ESPN, who we both know, who we both love, great guy, great reporter.
Yes.
We love him.
Very much
he had
so.
a very bad take over the weekend, and I wanted to address it. He tweeted this coming out of Big Ten Media Days. This wasn't among the talking points for Big Ten coaches and officials in Las Vegas, but I brought it up to several and they agreed. The preseason polls should be obliterated. They carry too much meaning and shape debate, overvaluing and undervaluing teams before we know anything. End quote. I completely disagree with this.
Yes, this is insane.
Dave, I'll let you go first.
So there's like 8 different fronts here, but let's start with you're basically infantilizing the committee. That the committee can't. First of all, the committee. I truly believe this. I don't think the committee cares about or pays that close attention to the polls. When they usually drop their rankings, they usually do look pretty different from the polls. By the time that they drop that, what is it? It's usually mid-October. I forget when they do it. It's something like that. It's like halfway through the season. You got a pretty good sense. Like at that point, the nonsense of the preseason polls has sorted itself out. It's not like you can start in the preseason top 10 Florida State and lose 4 times and you're still like in the top 25 because that's where you were in the preseason. Yes, teams are overvalued at the start of the season. Yes, that is true. But I think that, to me, if I'm on the committee, I'm like, well, who do you think I am? Like, you know, it doesn't make sense. And also, the preseason polls, I just think you're giving it way more power than they actually do. It's mostly just like that's kind of interesting. I glance at them. I sort of pay attention to them. But since the death of the BCS, I have wondered myself why anyone really gets really fired up about the polls. They literally don't matter. There are 13 opinions in college football that matter, and they all sit in a room in Grapevine, Texas, inexplicably why they need to do this in person and fly in there, whatever. I'm not going to get into that. Those are literally the only opinions that actually matter. Yes, what ESPN says, what Fox says, narratives can shape how teams are viewed, sort of. But I do think the committee has been pretty straightforward. It doesn't make sense. And also, even if you kill the AP poll, the coaches poll makes no sense. The fact that it still exists, yes. I can't believe coaches fill this out, and it's the fact that it was part of the BCS.
They don't fill it out. That's the
SIDs do. Either way, the fact that we have a coaches poll makes no sense. But even if you kill all the polls, guess what? People are still going to talk about it, and somebody else is going to start a poll with like 20. There's already like all these sub polls. The FWA has like the Super 16 or whatever. Like you can't kill the polls because people have opinions. Just because it's AP is formalized, it doesn't make any sense. There's going to be polls, and they also don't matter. So just don't pay attention to them and don't infantilize the committee. Rant over. I'm sorry. Adam, I love you. That makes no sense.
The poll determined the national champion for many, many years. Like
most of
years.
The sport. Oh, yeah. Almost century. The multiple polls. The UPI is dead, but we had that's how you get split national champions is there's multiple polls. And okay, if we're in 1990, I actually think there might be some truth to that because it's hard.
Yes.
Like when teams are only bumping down when they lose, then okay, I can see how it's hard to climb. I just don't think that's true in 2025.
So this comes up because several of the conferences are getting rid of their preseason polls. The Big 12 did, Conference USA did, the Big 10 did a long time ago. But to your point, Doug Lesmarie has been doing his own Big 10 poll for years in place of it when he was at Cleveland.com and now at Kings of the North podcast. I voted in that one. Also, I do a poll every Sunday. I rank 136 teams.
The Athletic 136 by Chris Vannini.
ESPN, if there was no AP poll, ESPN would do its own poll, and that would be the numbers that show up on the things. It's
100%.
It's a pointless discussion to start there. Secondly, the thinking is backwards because if you remove the preseason polls, we will by default in the media focus more on the Blue Bloods because those are the teams we generally would expect to be good or would draw more eyeballs for various things that you do. You need top 25 polls to see a team like, Kansas State top 15, or maybe Utah's in there. Where's Arizona State? Where's Clemson or SMU coming off of the playoff? That's the in. The poll is a promotion of the sport. There are 136 teams. Most of you are not like me and are going to pay attention to all 136 of them. That's okay. That's normal.
It's not okay, actually. If you're not grinding Delaware tape in October, you're not like us. I'm sorry.
I met Delaware coach Ryan Carty last week.
Sure.
Super nice guy. Great
sure
conversation at Conference USA Media Days. and so you have to have these polls because otherwise it's going to focus in on the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Notre Dames. That's where most of it's going to go because nobody is going to think, should I care about an SMU or a Kansas State or a Utah or whoever? You need that poll for the casuals, the people who haven't been following college football podcasts for the last 7 months and now they want to get back into it and want to know where Until Saturday is. Those are the people who kind of need to catch up on where things are. And the other part, the poll changes throughout the year. It's not like that's the one poll. and then like we get to the end of the season and make a new one. Like,
and there's also tons of examples. If you do a Florida State last year, I don't know where Florida State was week 3. They were probably almost out or below the top 20.
Because they were week 0. They lost. They were 0-2 and still ranked because it was a quirk. But yes, that was.
But either way, they fall out quickly. And if you have a couple big wins or one big wins, there's a lot. If you are unranked and you knock off a top 10 team in the first 3 weeks of the season, you usually show up in the poll. Like it's not. They're pretty flexible early on. They get a little more static late, but they're flexible.
A lot of this stemmed from Arizona State coming on late.
Yeah.
And being picked last in the Big 12 last year because they were 3-9 the year prior. Nobody knew what to expect of them. And so that's why the Big 12 got rid of its poll. Even though Kenny Dillingham was like, I don't care, like rank it.
Yeah, I asked him specifically about it. I asked him how he felt about killing the preseason poll. He's like, whatever.
Yeah, but like Arizona State also lost to Cincinnati early in the season without Sam Leavitt, and they didn't have a big win. So like it takes time to catch up. Again, the solution, honestly, there's 2 solutions. One, just rank all 136 teams like I do. Or 2, you do the conference media poll every week. Like that's if it's the preseason conference polls that people hate, just do them every week, and Big to SEC do your own poll. I don't know. So ultimately, I think this was a bad take. For the people who say you got to wait till you play a couple of games before you rank them, yes, that's what the CFP does. The only poll that actually matters. And as you said, the CFP poll is often significantly different from the AP poll, which then reacts to the CFP poll.
It's very funny. It's my favorite mid-season like storyline is watching the AP poll inexplicably shift after the CFP poll comes out. Well, I say CFP poll. We shouldn't call it the CFP rankings because it's not a poll, but it does sort of acclimate to whatever that is. It doesn't really align with how the games are resulted in. But people that are voters are like, well, the CFP people must be right, so I got to change this or that. It's very funny.
Yes. Polls are fun. They're just for fun. I like ranking all 136 teams. I like that people like to read it. It ultimately doesn't impact anything. We adjust to the stuff as it goes on. And I think it wouldn't happen, but getting rid of the preseason polls, I think would be a bad thing and just kind of further stop kind of promotion of the sport. But Adam Rittenberg, we love you. You're awesome. Great report.
In short, polls are fine.
Polls are fine. All right. With that, we're going to jump into the news segment, the media scrum.
That's why I don't read the newspaper. Because it's garbage.
We're going to start with Colorado coach Deion Sanders announcing that he had, I believe, bladder cancer, but now he's doing okay. David, you, as we're recording this, you just wrote about it, have talked to people around the program, kind of lay out exactly what happened for people who don't know.
So the long and short of it is in April, he gets frequent CT scans because of his blood clot issues. Obviously, they want to catch that stuff early, see how that's going. They noticed something on his bladder, referred him to a urological oncologist. Said he had a pretty aggressive form of bladder cancer. So they gave him some options. He basically said he didn't want to treat it. It has a very high recurrence rate. If you treat it, I'm assuming, he didn't explicitly say, I'm assuming we're talking about radiation, maybe chemo, something along those lines. Elected to just remove his entire bladder, which is obviously a very invasive, very serious surgery. It's robot assisted, which I'm very curious about as a guy who's, you might not believe this, Chris. I'm not that educated on urological surgery and how robots are involved or not involved. Either way, removed his bladder, formed a new bladder with pieces of his small intestine. Again, apparently I got to do some research on urological surgery because this sounds fascinating to me. But basically, it wasn't any lymph nodes that they also took out. Nothing spread. The cancer has about a 50% shot of metastasizing. It did not. And if it does spread to really anything, the 5-year survival rate, which is a lot of how they, like if you haven't dealt with cancer, their survival rates and percentages. They don't say like you have 6 months to live. That's not how it works. Basically, there's 1-year survival rate, 3-year survival rate, 5-year, 10-year. The 5-year survival rate is like 10%. With this cancer. So it very much was a serious deal. He was fortunate that it didn't spread, and his oncologist basically said he's cured and went through a lot, had 2 bags, made a lot of pee jokes. I think Deion feels like he can be sort of a vessel or a spokesman for people to get checked out because early detection here is why he is doing better. He mentioned like we could have been having a whole nother gathering, if I hadn't gotten checked out. And like, I just think it's it obviously was a pretty serious deal, a very tough thing to recover from. It's why he's been on his ranch for 3 months. There's been a lot of secrecy about it. Deion said, most notably, I thought, he didn't even tell Shiloh and Shador what was going on. I was watching some of the videos that his son Bucky put out, and he was laughing because he just told his son it was something going on with his foot. And he said, my son was like, I know you're lying to me because you're walking out of the hospital right now. We know it's not with your foot. And so, he said he lost about 25 pounds. He's doing a lot better. Sounds like he's pretty much full go. They are going to add porta potties like on the sideline in the game at practice.
Yeah,
he basically said, like, I can't control my bladder now. And I really respect Deion. He's a fascinating guy for a lot of reasons. And he's really unpredictable. And I think how upfront he was about, like, I was wetting my bed all the time. I'm having a contest with my 1-year-old grandson of who can have the fullest diaper. I depend on Depends. First of all, that's a bar. Second
Good
of all,
line.
I'll see you in the Depends commercials this fall, Deion. Congrats on getting that deal, I'm sure. I really respect him for handling it up front. And, like, there's so much about cancer in a million different ways that is really dehumanizing and really embarrassing and really humiliating.
Yeah.
And I think confronting that up front, because he knows cancer has affected a lot of people. He said that in there, it's affected everybody in this room, I'm sure. And it is really strips you of your dignity in a lot of ways. And I think stepping in front of that and talking about these things and saying, like, yeah, this happened to me. It's funny. We're going to have a porta potty because he actually does probably need it. And, like, respect Deion for that. I'm glad he's doing well. Really scary deal. And, I'm just, you don't want to see anybody suffering. And I think it's still an adjustment for him. But, somebody asked him about the lifestyle change. He said, I'm built for this. I got 8 toes, man. Like, Deion is a singular figure in this sport. And, like, I think he showed why a lot of today. You just never really know what you're going to get with him and how he sees the world and how he handles things. So shout out to Deion.
And to your point, they're like being upfront about it, cracking jokes about it, like really respect him for that, because a lot of people would want to keep all that stuff private.
Mm-hmm.
But as we know with Deion, nothing's private with him, and it's benefited him in many ways. But, like, I think about my grandparents, none of them are still alive, but toward the end, how they would kind of not want to tell you certain things they're going through. They don't want to ruin that image you have of them
100%
for your whole life. And Deion's just like upfront about it. Like, yeah, I'm wet in the bed. I can't control when I'm going to pee. And, like, that takes incredible courage.
It does.
To talk about that publicly and to try to speak out. And he kept saying over and over, get checked. Even earlier Monday, unrelated, Greg Sankey, SEC commissioner, said, got a colonoscopy, get checked. Like, this stuff is all very important, especially for men like you and me. Like, people don't want to talk about that stuff or don't look into it. It's really, really important. So really good news that Deion is cancer-free. He's been through a lot health-wise the last couple of years. Hopefully
14 surgeries since 2021.
Yeah, that's a lot. So, like,
if you've ever seen his leg, he mentioned it looks like he got a shark bite taken out of it. Like, they had to do a bunch of, like, skin graft. The blood clotting issue on his leg was pretty serious. Like, it was is it impact syndrome? I think that's what it's called. But he has a big chunk out of his leg. Like, his leg looks pretty gnarly. And, he really has been through, like, a lot of really testing things. And, shout out to his attitude through all this, and hopefully he'll be okay. But I do think, it was good to see. I think I'm curious what made him elect to, because, like, if you watch Deion Jr.'s videos, he talked a lot about being kind of conflicted because he just wanted to be a son. He's not playing football right now. He's just with his dad. He just wanted to be there. And his dad was like, no, you need to document this. We need to tell people my story, but in our time, which is obviously, they're going to be releasing some stuff in the days to come. He released a video, like, basically as the press conference was starting, kind of just around the surgery and teased a lot more coming out. Like, Deion wants to tell this story. And it's just interesting, like, the strategy of how they've handled this, because Deion talked about, like, it's amazing that there were no leaks. And you look at the surgery in the hospital, there's a lot of people walking around the hospital.
Yeah.
His players obviously didn't know. His sons didn't know. But it is kind of amazing that it didn't leak. And I did a lot of reporting around this. And, you got the sense that it was, like, serious. And also, like, once he had the surgery, it was obviously serious and it was hard to tell how much life threatening it was. Certainly in the beginning, when you don't know, very much life threatening. But after you have the surgery and even after you say, hey, like the cancer's all gone, I don't know a lot of the details of how you recover from a major invasive surgery like that, but it's not a joke. He's walking around for 2 weeks with 2 bags, full of like blood and urine. And it's tough. I can't imagine trying to adjust to that and then adjust to like, I feel the same. He said this thing where he was like, I get really frustrated when my body will not allow me to do things that I want to do. And I'm not that old yet, but you start feeling that as you get
especially when you're Deion Sanders, the guy who did everything, the guy who played in the NFL and MLB. I can't imagine to be like, man, my body's not working the way I want to do. So he's often kind of portrayed as a character, and he sometimes portrays himself at that. But I thought that was a very real human press conference, and glad he's okay. Get checked out. Good message coming from that. So all the best to Deion Sanders in Colorado. Shifting over to ACC Media Days in Charlotte, David, where you were. Couple stuff from ACC coaches taking shots at the SEC. Bill Belichick was there. Anything you took away, or just kind of what was the scene like? Because you'd never been to that one.
I haven't. It's a lot more chill than the Big 12. I think it's all very contained, like especially like at the Big 12 where you got like, it's at the Star. It's all very sprawling. SEC kind of the same thing. There's stuff like in the hotel that you kind of have to run to, and then there's the Hall of Fame, and there's kind of rooms around there. And the ACC is pretty contained, and there's a lot fewer reporters there, so you could get, I was able to get a lot of time with like players and coaches and one-on-one time and that kind of stuff, and it was pretty valuable. I really liked it. I hope to go again at some point, and just talking to people as well. We can get into some of the playoff stuff eventually, but the Big Ten is on an island. The ACC has been pretty outspoken. The Big 12 has been outspoken. The American, that at that point, you start looking at obviously what Greg Sankey said, what Jim Phillips has said, what Tim Pernetti has said, and what Brett Yormark has said. It is 10-1. The Big Ten is the only one pushing the automatic qualifiers, and that was interesting coming out of that. But I think in general in the ACC, Chris, it feels like a Clemson revenge tour is loading up. I look around that league and I don't see a lot of teams that if you gave me the over on 8.5, I'd feel great. And then I look at Clemson and I'm like, you might be one of the 3 best teams in the country, both sides of the ball, just reloading. I think we're about to get some Clemson ACC carnage.
Yes, and we will get into the season preview stuff when I get back from Europe and get into specifically. But Clemson's over under win total 9.5. They open up with LSU, but man, I like that over.
Maybe it's
Smash too obvious. That over. That's the thing. But like you think about the rest of the ACC, SMU probably taking a step back. Miami taking a step back. Syracuse,
Miami will see. I think people just don't trust Miami, and also for all the pieces, I think
you just lost the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yeah, you lost
your
Cam Ward,
receiver,
who had some questions going into Miami. People were like, they feel good about it, but like, I don't know that he's like a world beater. He was pretty close to a world beater last year. And they have Carson Beck, who, let's just say it hasn't been the best offseason of Carson Beck's life this year.
No.
So we'll see. He might be better than he was last year, but I don't know that he's a guy that's just, you could put him on your back and carry you to the ACC championship. I think Miami is probably going to lose some dumb games this year.
I do think it's a very deep league, top to bottom. I mean, I think Clemson's a heavy favorite, but I think there's a lot of depth in that league. And that takes us to a quote Rhett Lashley said, the SMU coach, who took a shot at the SEC by saying, the SEC has had the same 6 schools win the national championship since 1964. I think even SEC. The SEC has had the same 6 schools win the championship since 1964. Not a single one has been different since 1964. That's top heavy to me. That's not depth. That is end of quote. That is also a very cherry picked stat.
Yeah, very much so.
Because right before that there was a bunch of others. But I like the one, like even the people who think the SEC is overrated, the one thing I think everybody would agree on is that it's a very deep league, right? Like
most years, a lot of years, yes. I think that depends on how you want to describe deep. Like deeper than the Big Ten? Yes, absolutely. deep in that there's 7 teams that can win the title. I think that's true this year. I think that's most of the time not true. It's usually 2 or 3. But if we're grading it on like how good are your worst teams, I think the Big 12 can usually push the SEC a lot of years. And you look at the last 10, 15 years, I would argue the Big 12 has been, that bottom half has been competitive. But obviously the titles are what the title is. Leagues are judged by the top. So, it's definitely a little top heavy-ish, but it depends on how we want to define depth of a league, I guess.
I think one of the things that was most enjoyable about media days was conferences taking shots at each other. And we'll get into Big Ten in a minute as we get into the full playoff conversation. But before we get there, we'll talk about American Conference Media Days, which was also in Charlotte, which is where you were.
Yeah.
They're not the AAC anymore. They are the American Conference. They did a whole rebrand with a logo or with a mascot and everything.
First off, can we talk about SOAR briefly? So
SOAR, by the way, SOAR is the eagle mascot that they drew. They don't have a physical costume yet.
Yes. So I forget what they're calling him. I forget exactly what they're calling him. A conference ambassador.
Digital brand ambassador.
Multi-platform brand symbol. So I did talk to some people associated with the American. Unfortunately, it literally is that they don't have a costume made, but it is a bipedal eagle mascot. And I didn't tweet about this, but I did make a promise to myself going into media days that if there was a physical SOAR, I was going to take a picture with him and I will tweet it. That offer still stands. For the first time that I run into SOAR, I will be taking a picture with SOAR. I will be tweeting said picture. But ultimately, it was a pretty strong statement out of the gate from Tim Pernetti talking about pooling media rights, which I don't really have time to get into. I think that idea is a super interesting one.
It's also illegal. Like just to get up front, like you need an antitrust exemption from Congress in order for all of college to pool their rights together. It's the biggest problem with the Super League. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I wanted to get to the most interesting story from media days was this UTSA Memphis playbook thing, which I think is wild. And both sides tried to downplay it. And if this was in the SEC or the Big Ten, this would have been the biggest story for like a week.
But I'll tell you, we'll get into the details. I think the biggest fallout from this story should be in the Big Ten. But Chris, I'll leave it to you.
Memphis player Taj Ra'el sent elements of the Memphis playbook to UTSA before their November game after Ra'el had left the Memphis team in October.
The circumstance of his exit, by the way, sort of, this goes into like a lot of these G5 teams don't have day-to-day coverage, so it's unclear exactly what happened there, but he was not on the team. There's dismissed, he left, he went in the portal, I don't know.
Either way,
he wasn't on the team anymore. Clearly there was some bad blood there.
But he still had some stuff. UTSA wins that game, 44-36, essentially knocking Memphis out of the playoff contention at that point. On 3, the Memphis site first reported this. Then they followed up with screenshots of the message that Ra'el sent to UTSA quarterback Owen McCown, describing some of the coverages, also saying that the starting safety for Memphis had a bad hamstring and probably wouldn't play. So they were going to play quarters coverage. Wild, very specific stuff. And UTSA coach Jeff Traylor said he didn't know anything about it until the stories popped up. McCown at Media Day said he didn't ask for the information and that it wasn't relevant or that it was irrelevant. Ryan Silverfield, the coach at Memphis, I talked to him too, like didn't really want to make this into a big thing, but like this is crazy to me, right?
So it's crazy on a couple things. One, we just don't see stuff like this very often. I forget there was WikiLeaks was obviously crazy, but there was WikiLeaks,
the Wake Forest thing was crazy. The Connor Stallions, like to me, this is almost like specific to a specific one game. Like this is right up there, if not more. Like you've got the playbook and everything.
Well, so it was mostly just coverages and signals, and basically what Owen said was, I saw the screenshots that he sent. Like, so the screenshots that On3 got, I don't think anyone was arguing the authenticity of those, but he said it didn't really make sense to him. So he didn't bring it up to Jeff Traylor. I think I mostly probably agree. Like maybe he's looking for certain stuff, but if you just have like coverages in this book, like these programs do all kind of speak different languages. It's part of why when you transfer, there's like an acclimation period. And especially as a quarterback where you don't know a lot of their verbiage, like some of this stuff, you might have some insight from. Like, I think in the back of McCown's mind, he probably had some stuff to just think about. But I do believe that he didn't like show this to the coaches and like, hey, and I think he was talking about this isn't really how we game plan. And I also don't know what day of the week that this was sent to him, because if it's sent to you on like Sunday or Saturday, then it becomes like, well, I can see him like taking it to like a quarterback coach being, what do you think about this? But if you get this on like Thursday, in terms of game planning, like the hay is almost pretty much in the barn at that point. You can't do anything differently by like Wednesday or Thursday.
No,
like,
but if you know,
but
if you know, like they're playing mostly cover 4 because the safe and a starting safety's out, like that's that's notable to me. So both sides tried to not make it a big deal. I think, I think only because this was a group of 5 school, this didn't become a bigger story. But like, I found it crazy. I talked to Ryan Silford earlier in the week, and we'd just all at the Athletic kind of agreed, David, you would address it with all them when you got to American Media Days. And in between that time is when the screenshots came out. So
I think the fact that Memphis isn't furious, I'll tell you what I think is a bigger story here, if it's just me. And Purdue downplayed this at all. But Taj Rael, the defensive back, transferred to Purdue after the season.
Yes.
Let me tell you, if I'm a Purdue player, especially like Barry Odom is a first-year coach there. You got a lot of new faces. You're trying to mesh all these things. If you're in the locker room with him, how is that not an issue? Like, I think he's probably got to address the Purdue team, and I think Barry Odom has to address this. And also, I think you got to like keep an eye on him. This kind of stuff is like, that's the kind of stuff that follows you for the rest of your career, because it's such a violation of trust. And just the fact that you're not in that program anymore, to me, this is a problem in Purdue's locker room. It would have to be. And it might not be like outwardly, but maybe not in the facility, but those guys are going to go grab lunch or grab dinner after, and they're like, man, did you see the thing Taj said? Like, that's crazy, man. Like, you're not going to have the trust of your teammates, just because that's just not how people work.
Also, Memphis's defensive backs coach, Charles Clark, is now at Purdue as well. So like there's a former Memphis coach there too. So I don't know. I don't know. It was really good reporting, by the way, by On3's Memphis site to get all this stuff. I'm very curious how and why it came out now, and just, I don't know.
It is odd.
It is interesting for it to come out this later, right before Media Days, but made for good Media Day content. I also think this happens more than we realize. Because when the Connor Stallion stuff was going on and we were digging into it, you get all kinds of tips and rumors of like, oh, I heard this team was stealing this, or this team got access to this team's software and yada, yada. And you dig into it and you track it down. And sometimes it's not true. And sometimes you just can't come up with an answer. But in today's player movement era where guys are transferring and leaving the team all the time, and you got to log them out of all these different things that they're connected to, that these players have access to, like, I would not be surprised if this kind of thing happens more than we expect, and more than we think. And this is one that just came out, but that was a pretty wild story. Another wild Memphis story quickly. This happened kind of a week ago, but we hadn't had time to talk about it. Memphis offers a big payday to the Big 12 and gets told no. Basically, Memphis was asking to come into the league, the Big 12, take no money from the conference, and essentially provide $200 million in sponsorships to the Big 12 from FedEx, which is based in Memphis, Lowe's, AutoZone, spread that across everybody. And then basically, if Memphis wasn't adding value to the next TV deal, they could kick them out, that's way bigger than like what SMU was offering to get into the ACC. And it worked. A lot of the big money people at Memphis want them out of the American. The CEO of Lowe's is on the board of trustees. An executive VP of FedEx is on the board of trustees. And so you have like big money people around Memphis trying to get them into another conference. Just hasn't worked. I think ultimately, I think it happened for a few reasons. One, if you add Memphis and then have the option to kick them out in 5 years, that's tough. Like that's a tough situation to kind of put yourself in. Two, it's unknown if Memphis would actually add to the TV deal. And I think ultimately there's not enough spots right now. And like, it's ultimately, are you bringing value to the television deal or not? And SMU didn't, but to the ACC had to pre-backfill because they know Florida State and Clemson won out, and SMU wasn't going to take tier 1 money. And so there was a clause in the deal that ESPN would have to pay for a full member. Same as the Big 12 had, pay for a full member for a Power 4 school, but not for a Group of 5 school. So there's these like automatic things that add more money. SMU added money by being an addition, but SMU's not taking that money. Memphis wouldn't have the money. So ultimately, Memphis, credit to them for like trying and doing whatever.
Can I put my dad hat on briefly here?
Yeah.
I do not have sons. I do have daughters, but I do think when you get a little older, there is no shame in shooting for the job that you might not be qualified for, asking the girl out that might be out of your league, all this different stuff. These things like aim for, what is it they say? They aim for the moon. If you miss, you'll land among the stars, even though that,
not true, but
astronomically, that's like really problematic, but you get the point. There's a lot of haters out there that this is the same thing. Like when any program doesn't want to say that we never offered this coach, we just talked to him, we only offered the one coach that we hired because nobody wants to be turned down.
The biggest lie in AD says is he's
exactly.
the only coach. He was our top choice. He's the only coach we offered. This is nonsense. It's okay.
If you are making fun, if you were being a hater out here, clowning on Memphis in these streets, let me tell you, what do you want them to do? Okay. They put together the most attractive package they could. They pulled an SMU. They might not have oil money, but they got shipping and home construction money. That's pretty good. And you try to get in. You do what you can. So stop hating on Memphis. They did what they could. They said no. And they're going to, guess what? They're going to keep trying. They're going to keep pushing. We'll see how the wind blows in the next 5-6 years. We'll see what these media negotiations look like the next time the contracts are up. Don't be hating on Memphis for trying. All right. You wouldn't do the same thing for your kid. Don't do it for Memphis. Come on now.
Yes. Agree. Quickly on Conference USA. Had a good time. Met some of the coaches I didn't know before. It was good to see everybody. It was at the PGA headquarters in Frisco, which Dave,
I've never been there. I'm jealous. I got to tell you,
it's really cool. All the coaches go golfing. They've got.
I should. Chris, you're not a golf guy, so I will explain. The PGA,
I'm a little bit of a golf
The
guy.
PGA of America is different from the PGA Tour. I believe it's the PGA of America home, like the home, right?
Yes.
They put on the PGA Championship, which is not associated at all with the PGA Tour. It's very complicated. And then there's the Masters, which is literally just its own thing that doesn't have any association with literally anything. They're just like a really famous golf tournament. Anyway, I was jealous you got to go to the PGA headquarters. I have not been. I don't really know what's there, but it feels like it would be pretty cool to go.
It's not like a giant thing, but it's like spaced out. It's very nice. All the coaches raved. They thought the hotel was like amazing. I don't know. I live here, so I don't get to stay there, but that was that. A couple things from Conference USA. Jamie Chadwell, the Liberty coach, he feels very good about this team. Like last year's team had a lot of drama on it, even though they had brought back a lot of people. He feels like everybody's bought in. He feels like the defense is better. They're going to be able to run the ball. So Liberty is the overwhelming favorite to win the conference. Keep an eye on Western Kentucky as usual. They're again going to have a passing attack as they once again have to retool the offense because Tyson Elton is such a good coach that people take his offense coordinator every year and he has to keep replacing it and he keeps finding it. He added Rick Bowie from Abilene Christian to be his OC, but he added quarterback Maverick McIver.
Started at Texas Tech, went to ACU as well. Yeah, I'm familiar. I'm familiar with Maverick McIver's game.
Yeah, put up big numbers against the Red Raiders last year. Almost beat them at the beginning of the season. So keep an eye on Western Kentucky's passing game. Should be really fun. Delaware and Missouri State, your two new FBS teams, they feel like they can adjust. Like some of the Missouri State people were like, "Look, we were in a conference with North Dakota State and South Dakota State. They're better than a lot of what Conference USA has."
Yeah, I would say North Dakota State and South Dakota State. If you were ranking them in the Athletic 136, they'd probably be in the 70s. Like the teams that are national title contenders in the FCS, probably 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
Probably.
So they think they can adjust. We will see. And another thing from a lot of the people in Conference USA, they want all the group of 6 leagues to start scheduling with each other more because they feel like the P4 are kind of starting to box them out. If the SEC goes to 9, if the ACC goes to 9, there's just going to be fewer opportunities. They want to work together on some scheduling stuff and kind of hit and miss on how that's going. But Conference USA, if you're a full college football fan, you'll watch those midweek October games. They got some big games early in the season, by the way. Liberty, Western Kentucky. Keep an eye on Conference USA early in the season. Some big games there. That will take us to the Big Ten, and that will take us to the heat check.
Analytics, throw him in the garbage.
And it's the heat check for a couple of reasons. One, Kurt Cignetti, the Indiana coach, had a good line. He it was basically asked, hey, why is Indiana playing all these, group of 5 and FCS teams in your non-conference schedule? And he says, well, we're just doing the SEC model. To which he says, 12 of the 12. He says 12 of 16 SEC schools play 3 G5 or FCS games. That is a fair point, a better point, I think, than Rhett Lashley made.
Can we get a 5-year average? Because I don't know how much that is true. Listen, the SEC schedules are okay out of conference, more than not. There's the whole Florida usually, on the road thing, but usually it's better.
You'll usually get 1 P4 if it's Florida State or Louisville, Kentucky, whatever, and then 3 G5s and FCSs, which is normal. And so he's saying we play a 9th conference game, and then we do the 3. So, I don't love it, especially because Indiana's schedule last year, but I get it. It's a fair point. I thought James Franklin had some interesting comments. Was not a fan of media days being in Las Vegas.
Nobody is. Every time any league goes to Vegas, everyone's like, this sucks.
Well, depends where you're at. The Big 12 worked. Mountain West is going to be based there, so it makes sense. But the
People
Big
seem
10
to like the title games in Vegas. Not fans of media days in Vegas.
This is what happens when you have a cross-country conference and you have one team in Pennsylvania and you have some teams in Los Angeles.
Are you suggesting that might not make sense, Chris? I don't know.
Yeah, it's almost like that doesn't exactly make sense. But the big thing from Big Ten, the number one thing people wanted to know was Tony Petitti, the commissioner, talking about the Big Ten's CFP model of 4 automatic bids each for the Big Ten SEC, 2 for the ACC and Big 12, then 1 and 3, however... I'm going to
try to get through this segment without screaming.
A group of 5 spot. So it all leads to this during the press conference. Somebody from, I believe it was at Bucknuts, asked kind of a rambling question, but basically said they're not sure if there's an appetite for a 4-loss team to make the playoff, especially if it's in a play-in game. Because who was 6th place in the Big Ten last year? It was Iowa.
The Iowa Hawkeyes,
who didn't have a top 25 win. Who lost to Michigan State, lost to UCLA. Is that a team that should be contending for a playoff spot? That was
Big 12's official account was roasting them for losing to Iowa State at home, by the way.
So here's a quote from Petitti. Part of the end of a long answer. Quote: if you are 6-3 in the Big Ten, I would argue that's a great record. If you stumbled in a non-conference game, I don't know why that disqualifies you. 8-4 is a winning percentage. If you project that winning percentage in every other sport, I'm pretty sure you make the postseason, whether it's hockey, basketball, anywhere else. That type of winning record, we've conditioned ourselves to think that if you're not a 1 or 2 loss team, you're not worthy of competing. There are plenty of teams in professional sports who qualify for the playoffs who can't get past the first round game. That's okay. They still get to play. We'll figure it out on the field rather than sitting in a room.
I can't with this.
I'm going to go first with
this. I'm going first
here.
This is insane. Go ahead.
I could not believe he said this. I could not believe he said it in a press conference. It was maybe the worst possible thing you could say to rally support for this. 8-4 Iowa was the 6th place team in the Big Ten last year. Nobody was thinking that they should have a shot to make the playoff and play for the national championship. Even Iowa fans. Nobody wants an 8-4 team to have a shot at the national championship, even their own team. But more than that, fans don't want the CFP to become the only thing that matters. Rivalry games matter. Regular season games matter. These things have to keep mattering. Further expansion of the playoff could completely reshape the sport. And that's what the Big Ten wants to do. Comparing it to professional sports, another thing I could not believe he said out loud. That turned off every college football fan who kind of doesn't like the way pro sports, they love college sports for what they are. And that's why Brett Yormark at Big 12 Media Day said a couple weeks ago, this is not a professional sport. That was a clear shot at Tony Petitti. Even when I asked him if it was a shot at Tony Petitti, he said no. It very clearly was. Tony Petitti is the guy who made the BCS happen. He's a pro sports guy coming from Major League Baseball, but he's a TV guy more than anything else. CBS, ABC, that's where he made his bread and butter. He was the guy who convinced the Big Ten in the Rose Bowl, let's do the BCS. And I think we can all agree the BCS was a step up from what it used to be.
Yes.
With split national championships out the wazoo. You had You had to simplify it a little bit and have a real national championship game. But this decision to say out loud that an 8-4 team should be in the playoff blew my mind. I think this rollout, every Big Ten coach was behind this and they supported it and they talked it up and yada, yada, yada. This was the Big Ten's big rollout. They had been silent on this for a year and a half since Tony first started pushing this behind closed doors in the playoff meeting. This big rollout, I didn't get a sense that anybody outside the Big Ten bought into this. So I don't think it worked. All right, that's my rant. Now you can go to yours.
Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this. And like you said, listen, college football fans are insane. It's part of why I love the sport. I think they're more unhinged a lot of times than a lot of pro sports fans. But they know their team. They know that they don't deserve to necessarily compete with this. There's not 8-4 fan bases out there being like, man, we should have got a shot. And also, we're talking about the regular season. This is what I've said this a million times. This is why I'm an 18 playoff guy. Every team that can reasonably make a case that they should get to play for a national championship should be involved in the playoff. I want that. I don't like when an undefeated UCF gets squeezed. I don't like when undefeated Liberty doesn't get a shot. I want them to have a shot to get in the mix. But that doesn't mean the middling power conference teams. You had your shot. I don't care about 9-3 teams getting locked out. I want all these teams that have made claims to be the best in the country. There's no outside of the top 6 or 7, and that's usually only when we're talking about a G5 team. If they get squeezed out of the polls, it's usually 4 or 5. Has a real case as the best team in the country. I think last year that probably would have excluded Ohio State more than likely because of the play on the field didn't necessitate it.
We're not going backwards to 8. Like that's obviously
I know that.
12
but
is.
But my point
12,
is
12 is good. Yeah.
My point is we want all the. I think most fans, well, not most, but I think a lot of fans feel that way. That if you have a claim to being the best team in the country when the season's over, you should get a chance to prove it on the field. Okay,
which they do now.
Nobody. We talk about this when you're talking about going from 12 to 16. Most people came away from year 1 of 12 being like, that was probably a little too many. We don't need SMU and Indiana to play. We know they're not the best teams in the country.
But they deserve to be in
a 12-team playoff. Sure, that's not what I'm saying. But
yes.
That's why I think that's why we don't even want to go to 12 from 16 and to make the case, well, we have to go from 12 to 16 and we have to do it this way because I want teams with 4 losses to still have a shot. No, dude. No. Well, like it's just nobody wants college football to be pro sports. Nobody wants the postseason to look like that.
Here's the thing. It's not just going to 16 because the SEC wants to go to 16 too.
Yes.
And it may go to 16. It's the play-in game part of it.
Yes.
That is giving your 5th and that is automatically giving 4 spots to the Big Ten. And to bring this all the way back around, the same people in the Big Ten apparently talking to Adam Rittenberg who don't want preseason polls because it gives a predetermined advantage to teams that are ranked higher, are fine with a playoff that structurally builds in a predetermined advantage for certain teams in the Big Ten and the SEC. Like, that's the problem. If this was even auto bids, if it was 3-3-3-3, I'm fine with that. I probably am fine with that.
No, I don't like it.
It's the unevenness of it all that is the most insulting part. And even if the Big Ten and the SEC are the 2 best conferences, and we know that's probably going to be the case, that plays out anyway in the other form to do it. It's a 2-part thing. Tony Petitti wants to do this play-in tournament because, one, it gives teams like an 8-4 Iowa, like Illinois, whoever, a shot to make the playoff, which he's right. It's a top-heavy conference. Most years, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, like Michigan, like they're going to be there in the conversation pretty much every year. If you're that middle tier Big Ten school outside of an 11-1 year like Indiana had, what is your real shot? It is a problem. But that also goes back to, you didn't have to add these teams in the first place. This is all because these conferences have become too big and they have to fix the problems that they themselves created. And so yet you do this play-in tournament, you give hope to your Iowas and your Illinois, and you have a couple extra games you can sell to Fox and whoever and get some more money that way. That is what this is ultimately all about.
Yes.
And to say like, yeah, 8-4 is good. Like that team should have a shot. Nobody in college football thinks that. I also think there's like a mental leap, like in your head, if your team goes 8-4 versus if they go 9-3, like 9-3, you're feeling pretty good about usually.
Well,
8-4, you're like, all right, it's a good
9-3,
team.
I'll listen to what happened in 2 of those games.
Yeah,
Like, well, our quarterback was hurt. We had a bad call. It's like, all right, like I don't love it, but like, okay, I'll listen. 8-4, I don't care. What you can't lose 4 games. I will say though, Chris, I think part of this that is being overlooked, and I would call it somewhat of a tinfoil hat theory. You referenced a little bit of it, but the Big Ten is the only league. I believe that's the only league that's currently in bed with Fox. Fox has
the Mountain West and the Big 12 as well.
Okay. They have no postseason games. This creates some postseason. This creates another TV package, obviously, that you can sell. It's an interesting theory. I've talked to people about it. You get mixed theories. I think it's an interesting theory. Either way, this I like the idea of revitalizing conference championship weekend. I talked about it last year.
Mm-hmm.
That concept is great. But if you have the auto bids and all the side effects that come with it, chiefly if Texas beats Ohio State, it wouldn't matter. Like all this stuff, like you're killing non-conference. But all the side effects that would come with the revitalizing, like in my perfect world, you play those games anyway. You let the chips fall where they may with the committee, and you say, hey, number 1, number 2, y'all take a seat, rest up championship weekend, and then 3, 6, 4, 5 in our league, y'all play, and we'll see how it plays. They're never going to do that, but that's what they should do if they want to do the best product.
The other problem with the 4-4-2-2 is like if a 6th place Big Ten team wins its way in and say that number 3 team loses, you've got those at-large spots to save them. And if you got a third place Big 12 or ACC team that was higher than that 6th place Big Ten team, we all think they're a better team, but they're the ones getting pushed out because that extra Big Ten team has to get the at-large, the number 3 Big Ten team. So like, there's no reason the ACC and Big 12 want to do this. They don't want to do it. It's kind of a mess. I think ultimately this rollout, don't think it went well. Our Joe Rexrode ripped him in a column. Stuart Mandel called it Planet Gaslight in a column. I think it got like 1,000 comments on the Athletics website. So people had a lot of thoughts. What happens now? I don't know. Like there's a meeting in September for the commissioners. Yeah. It's ultimately up to the Big Ten and SEC what happens. They continue to have calls. The deadline is December 1st. That's when ESPN is like, all right, we need to know what you're doing next year. I don't think that's a hard deadline. You know, if they come to an agreement in January, I don't think ESPN is going to be like, no. So we'll see. But there's just continues to be more and more momentum to stick at 12 because they can't come to an agreement. The Big Ten says we might do 5 plus 11 if the SEC goes to non-conference games, which Greg Sankey wants to do, but the coaches don't want to do. So we may be at a standstill to stick at 12, which is what I wrote about in January. Yeah, is ultimately the best thing. Any last words on playoff stuff before we wrap up?
Do you think the Big Ten comes off of this, Chris, or are we stuck in a status quo and we're going to be doing 12 for another year? And this is a debate that goes on. I think because you roll out, you do your big public rollout, and around public repudiation, even as the coaches are supporting. Do you feel like the Big Ten comes off of this and says, "All right, we'll do the 5-11"?
I think it only happens if the SEC does 9 conference games, which I think is more likely than the Big Ten coming off of its spot. Because Greg Sankey wants
slightly more likely. Mm-hmm.
Greg Sankey wants 9 conference games to happen. He has said that. Like it does make sense. So, but I think the money right now would probably be on staying at 12 for at least a year. I thought 12 went really well. I enjoyed it. They changed the seating for this year. Whatever. Fine.
Is Vegas offering odds on this? I'd like to see what those betting odds are.
We should. That's a good question. So anyway, we'll see. Rollout didn't go great. Tony Petitti is going to keep pushing for that.
Planet Gaslights. That's a tough look. That's a tough look for the Big Ten.
I'm ready to start talking. I'm ready to start talking about actual football and not just playoff stuff every single time we get on here. So we're going to now go to the segment called "Remember Some Guys."
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
This is the segment where we list an old college football player and we go, hey, remember that guy? I'm going to start with somebody coming off of Conference USA Media Days. I'm going to pull from there. And that is Rod Smart, former Western Kentucky running back. You might know him from the XFL as He Hate Me. He also had a cup of coffee in the NFL. I do not remember Rod Smart at Western Kentucky, but I think we all who remember the 2001 XFL remember He Hate Me on the back of a nameplate. Legendary jersey name. So Rod Smart, He Hate Me. Remember that guy?
I like it. I obviously do remember him a little bit in the NFL as a return guy. Obviously, probably the most famous XFL guy, but yeah, I have very little memory of him at Western Kentucky.
You know who else played in the XFL? Jeff Brom, the current Louisville coach. He's the guy who said, what was it? Love football. Had that famous like pregame speech.
Yes.
Also, before we get to yours, a couple of listeners have emailed into bunchformationpod@gmail.com with their own guys they want to remember. So when we get those, we're going to include them. So before we get to yours, we're going to go to listener Mike, a Purdue alum, who sent in Rick Leach, Michigan quarterback, 1975 to 1978. Considering I was not born then, I do not remember him playing at that time. But as someone who grew up in Detroit and grew up a Michigan fan, I read a lot about Rick Leach and what he did at Michigan under Bo Schembechler there in the late 70s. Very good quarterback. So how about that? Dave, who is your guy?
How about our guy, speaking of Western Kentucky people, Louisville quarterback Brian Brom. I remember him both as a video game guy, both as a player at Louisville. And I felt like what he was doing was like impossible. And like, just, I loved watching him play. I loved watching him swing it around. He was kind of, I'm trying to remember if Bobby Petrino had like much of a cachet before Brian Brom. You'd have to remind me. I don't think necessarily. I think he's kind of who people, remember him as being that dude at Louisville. And that was just a really fun offense, slinging it around. And 20 years later, Bobby's still kind of doing it sort of at Arkansas. And Brian Brom, I think, is coaching at Louisville now, if I'm not mistaken.
He is the offensive coordinator at Louisville.
There you go.
But you know what else? You know what game he played in? It's a game we talked about in this segment about a month ago. He was the quarterback for that number 3 Louisville team that lost.
Oh yeah, the Jeremy Ito game. That's how I recall that game.
The Pandemonium Piscataway. He was the quarterback on that Louisville team that went 12-1, finished number 6 in the country, won the Orange Bowl against Wake Forest. Man, I forgot about that. Orange Bowl.
People lament the death of the Big East as a basketball conference, but I think the modern college football fan, especially if you're like under 30, doesn't respect how good the Big East was at one time, like in football. You got Michael Vick, Warren Sapp, great Miami teams, really good Virginia Tech teams under Frank Beamer. Obviously, Louisville, kind of a later addition there, but they had some really good teams. Like the Big East was cooking there for a while, and then obviously the Rich Rod, West Virginia teams that we've talked about, pretty frequently. Big East, man. It's been through a lot. It doesn't exist, obviously, from a football perspective, but shout out to Brian Brom and shout out to the Big East. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Yes, I can probably blame the ACC for the Big East football demise. There's always been conferences eating each other. It's kind of the history of the sport. But Brian Brom, Rod Smart, Rick Leach, we remember you. And that is going to do it here on this episode. Reminder, I will be gone for the next 2 weeks. David may hold the fort down until then, may have something for you guys. We'll let you know. But I'm going to enjoy my 2 weeks off. Dave's got a lot going on. Looking forward to getting back, talking about actual football. Camp will be well underway. Games will be a couple of weeks away. We're almost there. Please tell your friends, tell your family about the show. If they were wondering where Until Saturday was, we're going to kind of do another kind of soft launch when I get back to kind of really promote the show, because this has been a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun doing this. Wanted to keep this going. Appreciate everybody who calls in, writes in, and is a part of the show, because that's a reason that we do it. So, for David Ubben, I'm Chris Vannini, and we will see you in the next one.
And bring back the turnover chain. See you guys.